contra mi voluntad repetida de agotar la legislatura.
Just a month ago, the Socialist Party of the region of Murcia in Spain announced that it was going to present a motion of no confidence in the region and in the city of Murcia to end with the government of Popular Party, which ruled in coalition with Ciudadanos. What happened next hours was a massive political earthquake across the country. Fearing the same thing would happen in Madrid, where the Popular Party also governed with the Ciudadanos Party, the president decided to dissolve the assembly and call elections for May 4th.
He decidido disolver la Asamblea de Madrid y convocar elecciones anticipadas. Me he visto obligada a tomar esta decisión por el bien de Madrid y de España y contra mi voluntad repetida de agotar la legislatura. La inestabilidad institucional provocada esta misma mañana por Ciudadanos y el PSOE y demás partidos de la izquierda en Murcia y ya durante largo tiempo en otras autonomías e incluso en ayuntamientos.
At the same time, the Socialist Party and the Más Madrid Party presented motions of no confidence in the community to remove the president before she called elections. And the same happened hours later in the region of Castile and León. Finally, the motion of no confidence in Murcia failed after 3 deputies from Ciudadanos voted against it in exchange for high-level positions in the regional government. However, elections in Madrid region had already been called and would take place in just 2 months. A few days later, the Vice Prime Minister of Spain, Pablo Iglesias, announced that he was resigning from his position to stand in the elections in Madrid region. Yes, the second most important person in the government of Spain resigned to stand in the elections of a region in which the polls barely gave his party, Unidas Podemos, more than 5% of the vote.
Decidido que si los inscritos quieren, voy a presentarme a las elecciones del próximo 4 de mayo en la Comunidad de Madrid. Un militante debe estar allí donde es más útil en cada momento. Tened por seguro que voy a poner todo lo que he aprendido en estos años, toda mi energía, toda mi cabeza y mi experiencia de gobierno, todo mi corazón y toda la fuerza de mi organización en construir una candidatura de izquierdas fuerte y amplia para impedir que la ultraderecha se apodere de nuestras instituciones y para ganar el gobierno de la Comunidad de Madrid.
But what does the Madrid region have for its elections to have caused this earthquake in Spain? The truth is that this question has a really simple answer. Isabel Díaz Ayuso.
Madrid, 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 pedazo de la España en que nací.
She has been baptized by the media as the Spanish Trump. She reached the government of Madrid in 2019 after her party, the Popular Party, made a coalition government with the liberals of Ciudadanos and with the support also of the extremists of Vox. She rose as president despite the fact that her party obtained the worst result in the history of the community, with only 22% of the vote. Historically, the Madrid region has been a stronghold for the centre-right party, having always ruled there since 1987. But let's get back to Ayuso. How has this woman managed to make the Popular Party go from the worst result in its history to the polls giving her more than 40% of the vote? The answer is probably the way of making politics of her. Some political science affirm that the Popular Party in Madrid has become something like a Madrileñan nationalist party, combative with the Spanish Social Democratic government and defending the Madrid's identity and speech against the restrictions adopted by the COVID crisis and in favor of the hospitality industry. In addition, Ayuso has a populist speech that has penetrated in Madrid very well, leaving the ultranationalist Vox party without a space, which for the first time is saying how the classic Popular Party wins the ideological battle. In fact, the party's campaign slogan was socialism or freedom, And after the entry of Pablo Iglesias, the Vice Prime Minister of Spain, in the electoral race, they decided to change it to communism or freedom, a slogan that could easily be from a European far-right party. And not only that, Ayuso has had some controversial quotes like the following.
Temeraria, excéntrica, psicópata.
Fascista, porque ese es el mejor.
Fascista.
Ese es el mejor. Cuando te llaman fascista, sabes que lo estás haciendo bien. Ese no tiene que fallar. ¿Te lo han llamado a ti alguna vez?
A mí todos los días.
Pues entonces nada, estás en el lado bueno.
Pero no, a mí es que
En el lado bueno de la historia,
a mí
digo.
me toca un pie lo que me digan. Así que es
Pues
que ya llega un momento.
estamos en ese lado.
If they call you a fascist, you are in the good side of history, said the president of the region on one of the most important morning television shows in Spain. To all these reasons, we must add the decline of Ciudadanos Party, which has in the process of disintegration and whose voters have gone in mass to the Popular Party. Well, we have already seen that Isabel Díaz Ayuso is one of the candidates for which these elections are gaining so much relevance. But who else is running? Do you remember that we mentioned the Vice Prime Minister before, yeah? Well, yes. Pablo Iglesias is the other great reason why Madrid has become a real battlefield for polarization. Before announcing that he could stand in the elections, Unidas Podemos barely had a 5% of the vote in the polls, and after announcing it, the polls raised him intentions to vote to more than 10%. However, Pablo Iglesias has a big problem in the community, and this problem is called Más Madrid. Más Madrid is a green eco-socialist party that already ruled in the Spanish capital until 2019, and that already had problems with the Iglesias party. To understand why these two parties of similar ideology don't get along particularly well, we must go back to 2015, when the Ahora Madrid coalition, created for the local elections, made up from several parties and led by Manuela Carmena, Pablo Iglesias and Íñigo Errejón. This party won the majority with the support of the Socialist Party, but in 2019, Carmena and Errejón decided to create a new party for the elections, called Más Madrid, this time excluding Pablo Iglesias and its party. The internal crisis within Unidas Podemos led some of the great leaders of his party to leave and go to Más País or Más Madrid in the community. Since then, the relations between Pablo Iglesias and Íñigo Errejón had been tense, and the attacks involved in the 2019 regional and general elections were continuous. Thus, in Madrid, the leadership of the left is in Más Madrid, which is why Pablo Iglesias has needed to polarize his speech to differentiate himself from them, making Unidas Podemos a somewhat more extremist party in these elections. Moments in which this polarization was more evident took place less than a week ago, when Vox decided to hold a rally in one of the most working-class neighborhoods of the capital, Vallecas. There, the neighborhood welcomed the National Conservative Party with banners and calling them fascist. Pablo Iglesias considered that this meeting or this rally was a provocation by Vox, and in a way justified the violent events that happened. And yes, Vox is another of the parties that need polarization to have a leading role in the May elections.
Pero pretenden imponernos la dictadura de los países de donde todavía no han conseguido levantar la cabeza. Millones de muertos en el mundo y de miles de compatriotas nuestros a la historia. Desde aquí, desde este barrio, desde este distrito tan querido de Madrid, decimos alto y claro que desde Tetuán, desde Madrid, ¡viva España y adelante!
Before, we commented that his rally in Vallecas was considered by the left as a provocation, and whether or not it was, the Ultra Party came out winning. We must keep in mind that this is a neighborhood in which the left won with 70% of the vote in the general elections, and it seems like Vox there has no chance of winning. And yes, in words of the Spanish police, the violent events in the neighborhood had as a trigger that the leader of Vox broke the police cordon to approach the left-wing protesters. Well then, is there anyone who is not polarization in the elections of Madrid? The truth is that yes. We introduce you to Ángel Gabilondo, bland, serious and formal.
Algunos dicen que soy un soso. Si es por sosegado puede que tengan razón. Será porque no creo en la bronca. Porque cuando hay gritos pido la palabra. Porque cuando se trata de la pandemia, la vacunación y la recuperación económica, no resumo mi programa en un tuit. Tengo mucho más que decir.
This man, professor at university, has already won the 2019 elections, although he couldn't govern in the community. His speech tries to gather voters from the center-left to the center-right, moving away from populist speeches and trying to do the old politics. At the moment, the polls are not giving him great results, but not a great decline either. They simply remain in line.
Porque Madrid es encuentro, es concordia, es reconciliación. Madrid es futuro, Madrid es moderación, Madrid es centro. Es el corazón de un país. Aquí cabemos todos, vengamos de donde vengamos.
The Citizen Party, as Unidas Podemos did, is betting hard not to be left out of the assembly. And a few weeks ago, they announced that its candidate could be the spokesperson in the Congress of Deputies, Edmundo Val. However, the crisis of the Liberal Party is so deep that few polls give them the possibility of having representation. And it seems that it's the definitive end of the party. Finally, Más Madrid. Despite being a party much more to the left than the Socialist Party, it's carrying out a campaign of relative moderation, trying not to get into many disputes. The Green Party benefits from silence, not to talk too much about them, and that is because they have achieved a very faithful percentage of the vote that will continue voting for them.
El Partido Popular nos ha dejado a la cola de España y Europa en materia de lucha contra el cambio climático y la contaminación, la gestión de los residuos y las aguas residuales, la transición energética, el urbanismo sostenible, la agricultura, la conservación de la biodiversidad y la movilidad sostenible. Desde Más Madrid, como la fuerza verde que representamos, vamos a cambiar este modelo insostenible y a convertir Madrid en el ejemplo de la transición ecológica.
Their candidate, Mónica García, in addition to being a former member of Unidas Podemos, is a doctor and fought on the front line against the COVID, which has led him to have one of the highest approval ratings in these elections. So, this is the atmosphere for the Madrid elections on May 4th. Every poll are clear that there will be a comfortable victory for Isabel Díaz Ayuso, but how the rest of the parties will be configured is really unknown. The most possible scenario is that the next government in the region will be formed by the Popular Party and Vox, and it seems very difficult for the left-wing parties to achieve a majority that ends with more than 40 years of conservative government in the region. Thank you very much for watching this video. You can let me down what do you think about this new project, or you can tell me just whatever you want. Remember to follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, and see you in the next video.